It's a supersized edition of the Unabated podcast this week as we get ready for the Super Bowl. First, it's Matt Freedman of Fantasy Life joining the show to talk about the bets he's making on the big game. After that, we're headed to the other side of the counter as John Murray of the Superbook sits down with us to talk about the action that they've been booking down at the Westgate. It's a great show. Let's get to it.
Unabated. That's a new word, unabated.
Hello, everyone, and welcome on into the Unabated podcast. I'm Thomas Viola, and joining me, as always, Mr. Unabated himself, Captain Jack Andrews. And Jack, we've got a good one today. The Super Bowl is here, and we are doing a nice double header for the first time in show history. Double header here. We have two fantastic guests to give us the perspective from one side of the counter and from the other. We have Matt Freedman from Fantasy Life, Matthew Berry's Fantasy Life, coming on to give us the sharp better perspective, what he's talking about, what he's looking at in terms of props. And then joining us in the second half here is going to be Superbook's own John Murray, giving us the insight as to what is going on behind the counter at one of the sharpest shops in town.
Yeah, look, I was thinking, how do we make Super Bowl special this year? I think getting the perspective of a sharp bettor and a sharp bookmaker in the same episode. We've never had John Murray on the program. A lot of respect for the Superbook out there in Las Vegas. I miss not being able to bet into their lines here in New Jersey this year because the Super Bowl packet from the Superbook is world renowned. So I think this is good. I think we're going to get perspective from two different sides, and I think they're going to have some angles and picks that they're looking at for the game.
I'm very excited. I think we should waste no more time. Let's get to it.
Let's play two.
And ladies and gentlemen, welcome on into the show, making his return once again, the Oracle himself, Matt Freedman. Matt, I'm going to introduce you as that every time, man. It's just going to happen.
Thanks. Well, I'm not an oracle. I never would have imagined that the Mavs would trade away Luka Doncic. So, so much for my prognosticating skills. But hey, at least we've got the Super Bowl. And I mean, Cowboys fan that I am, obviously not rooting for the Eagles, but I think it's going to be a great game regardless of who wins.
I think so too. If you're looking at absolutely anything about the prior Super Bowl that we've had between these two teams, I hope that we get the same thing where it's an incredible game like that. I did suffer one of my worst beats ever in that game, though, hoping that doesn't happen. But I did it tailing you, of all things, and that's why I bring it back up. Here's the thing. It was a phenomenal bet that we had because you were the one who brought it up last time of Patrick Mahomes to lead the postseason in passing. Remember that?
Yes, I do. And I think he had like 180 yards or something, and yes, that still hurts.
Yeah. I would never in my life will I get another 95-yard middle and have it not hit. That was absurd. But you are also a Mavs fan in mourning here, rare for the Cowboys Mavs combo. You would expect that you'd be happy about that as a Cowboys fan that your basketball team got Luka here, Matt.
Very good. Nice dig. Yes, I'm also a Yankees fan. No, fortunately, as a Rangers fan, at least we got the World Series a couple of years ago, so that was good. But yeah, still a little raw from the Luka trade. But hey, at least in New Hampshire, I've got all the snow here to ski. So I've been doing lots of skiing, clearing the head, trying not to think about Luka too much, and enjoying, at least last week, enjoying the break that we had from football. So it's good to get back in the swing with the Super Bowl coming up and to talk about these props.
Yeah, exactly. And let's get into it here because we have, I mean, it's going to be a very, very interesting Super Bowl. And how is that portfolio shaping up for you when it comes to the prop bet so far? Are you finding that you're laying off waiting for a lot of prices to steam up, or have you been attacking some stuff so far? How's it looking?
Mostly waiting. Sometimes you just see a line and it's like, all right, it might move a little bit higher, but I like it where it is, and you really can never fully anticipate what's going to happen with the market. So I would say I tend to bet unders. That just tends to be my default. And with games like this, the under tends to be, I think, most profitable closer to kickoff when you have more of your public bettors coming in, retail bettors coming in, and maybe moving the price up, especially in a game like this where there's so much action and retail bettors actually really might have more influence than they would otherwise in lesser games. But I would say, the Super Bowl playoff games, primetime games, in situations like that where you're going to have more eyeballs, more bettors, it generally makes sense if you like the under in a situation to wait and let that line move up, because in most situations it probably will move up. But of course, I will say on the other hand, there has never been more sports betting content than we have right now. And with the proliferation of voices, I think there is the possibility that you will have people earlier in the process identify lines that they think are already of a value, and maybe they'll tweet them out to their followers in their Discord, whatever it is. And then the line that you would anticipate would move up closer to kickoff might actually move down. So I do think there is kind of a balancing act. The market is ever evolving. And maybe whenever you reach that point where you think, okay, this line offers enough value as it is right now, maybe go ahead and fire.
I definitely agree. I mean, the conventional logic is, bet the unders late, bet the overs early when it comes into it. I think that I want to also institute, just if I see a Twitter handicapper tweet out a pick, I think I need to just start auto fading. I think that is the best plan moving forward here. I saw some guy tweet about no hole in one in the Pebble Beach Pro-Am this week. Took all of 2 hours for that. Pissed I didn't get on that one. But Jack, what are your thoughts here on the voices?
Yeah, this is something similar to what Rufus had said to us last week, and of course, it's a basic strategy move. If you're going to bet unders, you got to wait. The interesting thing is who the public is in love with this time is not the traditional Travis Kelce or Cooper Kupp the year that the Rams were in. It's Dallas Goedert. And if you look over Dallas Goedert's season, there's an injury in there. He had a great last game against Washington in the conference title game, and I think that's what's influencing a lot of this. But Dallas Goedert had kind of a middling season, and we've seen his line opened up around 45 or so yards receiving in this game. It's up over 50 now. It's about 51 and a half. It's probably going to even go a little higher. So I guess that's my question to you, Matt. What's your feeling on this whole Dallas Goedert over-under?
The Goddard thing is interesting. I have him projected on the under right now. I have him projected at 45.8. So I think the original line opening in that vicinity was probably correct. I do understand, however, the steam in that we have seen Goddard, since he's returned from injury, really be a much larger part of the passing offense, really kind of overtaking Devontae Smith a little bit in terms of how they are allocating their targets. And then also the matchup against the Chiefs is pretty advantageous. So I do understand the move, but I think we're going to see more of a run heavy game from the Eagles. And if that number continues to move up, and I still have my projection around 45, I will probably be looking at the under in that spot.
I was going to say, I feel like there's been some of the narrative is that the Chiefs struggle covering tight ends. What do we like, general truth, or is it going too far here?
No, it's, I think that is accurate. Now I will say, I feel like with tight ends, especially, so much of it is matchup dependent, but it is fair to say that in general, like we have the DVP tool at Fantasy Life. And so you can look at how defenses match up against specific positions. It is fair to say that the Chiefs are not as good against tight ends as they are against other positions. So I do think that it makes sense just in terms of vulnerability, thinking about how the Eagles might try to attack through the passing game. I understand the Dallas Goedert interest, but still, this feels very much like a Saquon Barkley game. And so the passing props in general for the Eagles, I would be inclined to look to the under in those spots.
One of the really interesting ones that I saw, I don't have the current number off the top of my head, but I've seen some people putting up the how many different Eagles will catch a pass prop. The line 5.5 juice minus 130 to the under.
Let me let me look really quickly in my projections, because that number, I will say I haven't looked at that market yet, but that number is interesting to me because it is a very truncated passing attack for the Eagles. Obviously, you have Saquon Barkley, AJ Brown, Devontae Smith, and Dallas Goedert. Those 4 are locks. It is not a lock that Jahan Dotson, who plays a lot of snaps,
He does.
but doesn't get many targets, it's not a lock that he ends up getting a reception. Your number 2 tight end, Grant Calcaterra, now that Dallas Goedert is back, he's really not getting any targets.
Mm-hmm.
You're basically hoping Kenny Gainwell gets a reception. But even then, that gets you to 5. The under is interesting in that spot. I would want to look at it a little bit more, but I'm glad you called that one out because that intrigues me.
Yeah, that number, the instant I saw that, it popped in. I was like, I don't know about this because, like you said, I think Derek Carty and I pulled out the stat a couple weeks ago of Jahan Dotson runs routes on like 80% of snaps, and he hadn't had a target in 3 weeks or something.
It is actually massive for this prop that Jahan Dotson gets as much playing time as he does because he does not get targeted at all. And if he is out there occupying routes and snaps, then that is massive for the under in this spot because he is just like the opposite of a target hog.
Now,
but he gets some good cardio in.
He does.
That's what
so let's dig into that a little bit more about star players versus role players. So if I am a bettor looking at the Super Bowl, do I need to get in depth with the roster here to find the value? Is the value in prop betting in knowing how many receptions Jahan Dotson might get, or Brent Calcaterra? Look, I'm an Eagles fan and I don't even know the backup tight end's name. How far do you need to get down the roster?
I don't think you need to get far down, but I feel like it helps. And especially with SGPs, I feel like there can be some really interesting possibilities there. And in a game this big, there will be multiple ways of investing in players far down the depth chart that you ordinarily wouldn't be able to get exposure to in other games. And so I would just say, think of Travis Kelce in this spot. I think he's an interesting player in terms of how he might be used, how the Eagles might approach him, and then what that means for all of the supplementary wide receivers for the Chiefs. So Travis Kelce a couple of weeks ago had a terrible performance, like barely registered in terms of production. But you looked on the other side of the brackets, and in the NFC Championship game, you had Zach Ertz in the hashtag revenge game absolutely going off against the Eagles. And so you kind of wonder, what does this mean for Travis Kelce? Like, is this going to be a typical playoff game for Travis Kelce where he just goes off? Or the Eagles, even though they absolutely allowed Zach Ertz to go off against them, do they shut Travis Kelce down? It feels like this is either a big Kelce game or a bad Kelce game. And I think there would be ways of leveraging that when you're looking to invest in all of those other ancillary wide receivers. Because I think in the SGP market, you could go over on Kelce's reception prop or his yardage prop, however it is that you're thinking about it, and then just string together a lot of unders on all of those wide receivers, or like kind of round robin SGP tickets with the way that you take the unders on Xavier Worthy, Hollywood Brown, Juju Smith-Schuster, Justin Watson, right? Of course, DeAndre Hopkins, who I think is now an afterthought within the Chiefs offense. But I think if Travis Kelce goes off, so many of these wide receivers, especially the guys further down the board, are going to go under on their reception totals and on the receiving yardage. And then I would say the flip side of this, if Kelce is shut down, if the Eagles are just absolutely saying, we will not let Travis Kelce beat us, we're going to make this rotation of wide receivers for the Chiefs, we're going to make them beat us, then I think you bet the under on Kelce and you correlate that with a number of overs for some of these guys. Xavier Worthy, Hollywood Brown, Juju Smith-Schuster, Justin Watson would be the guys who come to mind. And I'm not saying you put all 4 of them in an SGP, but maybe you create kind of a round robin of SGP tickets with how you're investing in that idea. So I would say, I think you open up a lot of really intriguing possibilities for how it is that you attack a game if you're looking at some of the players further down the depth chart, but you don't necessarily need to do that. I just think it really opens up the market, especially when you're thinking of SGP possibilities.
And when it comes to some of the role players on the Chiefs, it gets a lot more interesting there. For example, their players to have a reception number was 7.5.
Yeah.
Like there's a lot more that they like to do to spread the ball out if it's not going to Travis Kelce. So you could really be hitting on some good SGPs with some pretty low volume guys.
Yeah. I mean, 7.5, that feels low. Just looking at the projections with that rotation of wide receivers that they have and how often those guys get targeted, and then how often Noah Gray, your number 2 tight end, plays and gets targeted. And then you have Samaje Perine coming in with that rotation of 3 running backs. 7.5 feels low.
By the way, Samaje Perine, his reception total 1.5 at plus 210 over at the Superbook. I hit that today.
And I like that. I think there's some value there. I have him projected right now, I think around 1.3. So still to the under, but with the plus 210 odds, I think there's value in looking at that.
I also love his receiving number is like 7.5, but I love that prop every week.
Yeah.
So I will add in here as a PSA, if you're going to be playing SGPs, line shop.
Yes.
You will be shocked at the difference in payouts of the same SGP book to book, because it's a black box. There's not like
Yes.
a standard of pricing in terms of the correlation thing. So definitely do some line shopping. It'll take you a minute to kind of load them all into a bet slip, but it's worth it.
Yeah,
And,
absolutely. Line shopping is so important for SGPs.
and another thing, we'll probably talk about it a little more with John Murray in the second half of this show here, but the amount of arbitrage opportunities that are out there for this game, there are so many of them because you have, first off, so many props that really don't usually get posted for games, even in this new era. And there's a lot of variation between books. You can find some really good arbs out there.
Yeah, it's a fantastic game for people who really enjoy the process of grinding through different markets, doing comparisons, all of that stuff. And I mean, Rufus, amazing at doing stuff like that, right? Like this is the game where for people who love stuff like that, you often can get down as much action as you want to. So yeah, it is a great opportunity.
Jack, real quick aside here, how is it for account health? I feel like the Super Bowl is one of those events that maybe doesn't hurt your account as much hitting some of these more niche stuff.
Yeah, props have really come a long way in terms of account health. It used to be you bet props and they were just, death to an account. But these days, especially NFL props, I kind of feel like NBA props are getting there where there's a acceptance of a mass market appeal to props, and this is just a market that they book. Especially Super Bowl props. We know that 70 to 80% of the action on this game will be in the form of props. So there shouldn't be a trader out there in a major sports book that's going, man, this guy's hitting a lot of our Super Bowl props. He must be sharp. No, everybody's hitting all the Super Bowl props.
Now, Matt, we mentioned how Travis Kelce did absolutely nothing last week. That is partially my fault. I took my first anytime touchdown score bet of the year. Take a wild guess who I took and what happened in that. But you've got some thoughts in the TD market for this game, which is a tough nut to crack usually.
Yeah, I will say I feel for the past year and a half, maybe 2 years, the touchdown market has been intriguing to me, and in a couple of ways. So ordinarily, a market like that, just markets in general, but then a market that is going to draw a lot of attention, you would think that it would tend towards efficiency. And I generally feel that way about markets. The touchdown market, I think, is a little bit different. I have a feeling that let me rephrase this, not a feeling. In my experience, I think the guys who are on the continuum of likelihood, the guys who are likelier to score touchdowns, so guys like Saquon Barkley, guys like Jalen Hurts, those guys for the past year to 2 years have tended to be undervalued relative to their quote unquote real odds of scoring a touchdown. And the guys who are unlikely on the continuum to score a touchdown, so let's say a guy like Justin Watson, for instance, I feel like those guys have had odds that are too short. Their odds have been overvalued, right? And so the question would be kind of why is that? Because that seems counterintuitive. You would think a sort of retail better and touchdown props, I think, tend to be catered more to your typical, bro better, I would think that guy would probably come in and be like, oh, Saquon Barkley's going to score a touchdown, lock, right? But I think maybe those bettors actually gravitate towards the longer odds with the players who aren't as likely to score touchdowns. And maybe as a result, the odds for someone like Saquon Barkley, who let's say is like minus 190 to score a touchdown, when I think he should be more like minus 240. I think those guys have maybe a little more value in the market than you would expect. And because so many of these touchdown bets get rolled into SGPs, I feel like that can also mean that the market doesn't need to move as much as it actually should if it were a standalone market on its own, not getting impacted at all or sort of watered down by the impact of a whole lot of SGP tickets that don't hit. So I look at the market, I see Saquon Barkley at minus 190. I think he offers value there. I think he should be minus 240. I look at Jalen Hurts, who's minus 110, minus 115. I've him projected at minus 165. I think that there's value there. And then on the other hand, I look at all of the guys with longer odds, 2-1, 3-1, 4-1, and none of those guys, I think, offer value. So it feels like a little square to be like, yeah, I like Jalen Hurts to score a touchdown this week. And it's like, well, yeah, the dude scored 18 touchdowns in 18 games this year. Like, you're not really saying anything special. But I just think that with some of these players who are on the continuum likelier to score touchdowns, the market still has not moved far enough to take into account the probability that they actually will score.
Interesting. What let's shift gears a little bit. What's the most offbeat prop you've bet this so far or are considering betting?
I haven't bet it. I will say I probably won't bet it, but I'm not going to bet it. Okay. I just have to say I'm not going to bet
Well,
it.
if you give it out now, it's probably going to be because our
Look,
massive audience is just going to hammer it.
it's a FOMO bet, I will say. Harrison Butker is not going to win MVP. Okay. He's not going to win MVP. But if he were to win MVP, the year after I bet on him to win MVP in the Super Bowl and I didn't bet on him, I would be so tilted that I wouldn't be able to live with myself. So am I going to put like the little obligatory small sprinkle of money on Harrison Butker to win Super Bowl MVP? Probably, while fully acknowledging that is almost certainly a minus EV bet. Okay.
You absolutely have to. That is the most emotional EV you have to manifest there because, like you said, you never forgive yourself.
Yeah. I will say I haven't bet this. I know someone else who has bet this, and the logic, I still don't think it works, but Dallas Goedert to win Super Bowl MVP, I do not see it happening. Like what has to happen for Goddard to win Super Bowl MVP? Like, does he have to have like a rushing touchdown? I mean, like, it just seems so unrealistic. But that said, Dallas Goedert in the market right now is available at 100-1, and Devontae Smith is available at 66-1. I think Goddard should basically be neck and neck with Devontae Smith, but we're still talking about the smallest of edges there, and even then, I still don't think I would bet that. But, in the Super Bowl market, the Super Bowl MVP market, those are some things that stand out. Again, Harrison Butker, a kicker, is never going to win Super Bowl MVP. Last year, we got so close to the run that you would kind of need to get for that to happen, and it still wasn't going to happen. But Harrison Butker is available at 500-1 at one book to win Super Bowl MVP. I might put just a little bit on that just so I don't hate myself. I mean, look, I will still hate myself, but just, for other reasons.
Well, the trouble with the kicker as MVP is a lot of the MVP voting by the press is done before the game ends. And if a kicker is going to get the MVP, they're probably kicking some spectacular game-winning field goal.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you need to set it up like last year where you had a bunch of kicks right off the bat. And then even then, didn't Butker miss one right away? And it was just like, ooh, that's a tough one to come back from.
Yeah, I mean, he did have the most kicks in Super Bowl history and the longest field goal made in Super Bowl history. It's just
Mhm.
like that was the run that you needed. And then, I mean, I don't want to get back into it. It's just too tilting. But like, if the Chiefs wouldn't have scored a touchdown in overtime, if it would have been, oh, they need Bucker, because Bucker had kicked the field goal to get them into overtime. So then it was, oh, if Bucker in overtime kicks another field goal again to tie the game, and then again later in overtime the Chiefs get the ball back and then Bucker has a game winner,
Mhm.
then in a situation like that, like he would be, I think, very live to win.
Yeah.
But I feel like that is the scenario that you need for
Yeah.
a kicker to win, and it's never going to happen. Yeah.
I mean, I would honestly say if you had to pick a Super Bowl where you could get something like this, because people are expecting a shootout, given especially the priors from the last Super Bowl with these two teams and both of these offenses. You have one team that wants to run the ball, that really just does not want a forward pass in the Eagles, and you have another team that can't win a game by two possessions in the Chiefs. I think that we have a good possibility here for like kind of an under rock fight that people don't see coming.
Yeah, I see that, especially because
Jack is
I think
shaking his
there's,
head.
well, I think there's value on taking the under for Patrick Mahomes and his passing yardage prop. I have that
Mhm.
projected around 236, that I think around 250, 252 and a half in the market right now. I think there's value the under there. And I will also say I see value in the under on Patrick Mahomes with his rushing yardage, which like you ordinarily, I think in the playoffs, really wouldn't want to bet against Mahomes with the rushing yardage. He tends to run a little bit more in the playoffs. But 30 and a half is it's a big number. That is a big number for Mahomes, especially going against the Eagles, who this year have allowed just two quarterbacks to go over that number. One of them, Jaden Daniels, the other one, Lamar Jackson. So it's like they basically allowed the two best running quarterbacks in the league to go over that prop. Other than that, they haven't allowed anyone to do it. Like they're a very good defense against quarterback rushers. Mahomes, maybe he scrambles a little bit more in the playoffs. You know, maybe they use him a little bit more on designed runs, but he's gone over that number of 30 and a half in just 4 games this year. Like 30 and a half is a big number for Mahomes. And so if I'm thinking, hey, I want to take the under on Mahomes as a runner, I want to take the under on Mahomes as a passer, like what is there in this Chiefs offense? So like, yeah, I can envision a game that is lower scoring than people might expect.
Another potential angle on Mahomes here. We've got 6.5s popping up now on rushing attempts. Like very heavy juice if you want to go over 5.5. But I I mean, we talked about it a little bit of the survivorship bias of quarterbacks rush more in the playoffs. Well, who's in the playoffs? The Russian quarterbacks. I he sailed over his number in the last game, but 30 yards is a lot, but I kind of like him to go over that attempts number just because of how many scrambles he has and how many scrambles he's probably going to need to have against this D line from the Philadelphia Eagles.
Yeah, that's possible. I have the projection right now at 5.4. So I'm in line with the 5.5s that are out
Mhm.
there. 6.5 again feels a little bit high, but I would be inclined to bet the yardage total if I wanted to bet like the under. I would be inclined to bet the under on the yardage total instead of the under on the 6.5 rushes that's out there.
One of the more
Does a kneel down count as a
Yes.
rush
yes,
attempt? Okay.
Yes.
Well, yeah.
one of the more long shot ones that I'm thinking about taking. Neither team to have a sack. I think you're getting like 40 to 1 on it or something at some books. I have to go back and double check to make sure. I could be completely wrong on that. But the market has been piquing my interest because you have an incredibly elusive Mahomes and you have Jalen Hurts who like they don't want to pass as much. There's going to be fewer opportunities there for him to get sacked. And they have a really good offensive line.
That one's interesting.
Like
I
it's
would,
definitely a flyer, but
yeah, I'd want to think about it a little bit more. In full disclosure, I don't project out defensive stats the way that I do offensive stats. So I feel like the process of projecting out the offensive players at least kind of helps ground me so that when there are props like that where I don't have an exact projection for it. I still feel like because I go through the process of projecting the offensive players, it's easier for me to kind of shoot from the hip a little bit on what some fair odds should be. But for defensive players and thinking about sacks, that is harder. But 40-1 is definitely interesting. And I can see this being a very run heavy game, Tom, to your point, to where I feel like Jalen Hurts is the sort of the X factor in this. Like I can imagine a game where Mahomes doesn't have any sacks just because of the game plan. Maybe the Chiefs are a little bit run heavier than possible. The Eagles dominate the ball on offense for so often that there aren't all that many dropbacks for Mahomes. Like I can imagine the scenarios for Mahomes not taking any sacks. Jalen Hurts is really the one you have to think about. But if the Eagles do have a run heavy game plan and they're able to execute that well, then it like aids both quarterbacks to where you have fewer dropbacks for Mahomes and fewer dropbacks for Jalen Hurts. So I would be interested in thinking about this one a little bit more. I do like that call out.
I just double checked it. I've got 41-1 at Circa.
Nice.
And then the one sack exactly is just over 18-1. I don't know. It would be a fun one to hit for sure, but I'm curious about it. All right, Matt. One more question for you here before we get you out of here. Finish this sentence. The best part of betting the Super Bowl is blank.
Winning? No, I don't know. I would say like taking a lot of unders and sort of relishing in winning while other people are losing. That makes me sound like such a jerk. But like I just sort of love being at Super Bowl parties when there are people who are betting on lots of things to happen and those things just don't happen. There's like the malevolent part of me that is just sort of like, you know what? I think this is kind of humorous.
I like that.
Yeah.
Of course, I had my run. I was part of the no safety crowd back the 3 of the 4 years where there was a safety in the Super Bowl. So I got my comeuppance already on being the one at the party. Everyone's like, "Oh man, that sucks for you." So yeah.
I still think one of my favorites was a couple years ago when it was like, will there be a doink? Like, will someone hit a field goal off the upright? And the number was just flat out wrong. The people who were betting this were absolutely correct, and the first field goal just goes right into the upright.
Oh yeah, I remember that. I feel like that hit Rob Pizzola famously. Like I feel like I remember him just
Pizzola's been on the wrong side of a couple of those over the years for sure.
Yeah, that's great prop.
All right, Matt, thank you so much for being with us. We are only halfway through the show right now. We're going to be bringing on John Murray after this, so don't go anywhere. But Matt, where can people find you and all of the fantastic work you are doing?
Well, you can find the fantastic work and just the mediocre work as well. You can find that at Fantasy Life. Matthew Berry's Fantasy Life, fantastic content that we have over there for people who are really into fantasy. We still have some sports betting content there too. You can find my projections, the official site projections that we have there. And then I'm starting to, look ahead to the NFL draft. Love doing those mock drafts. And, at some point, probably around March Madness or so, we're going to start to see the prop markets slowly release. And so that will be something that we'll be paying a lot of attention to. But fantasylife.com is where you can find all the stuff. And by the way, I just have to say, it is always so much fun to talk with you guys. And I think what you guys are doing at Unabated is so important in the industry. And the tools that you have there are fantastic. I think the community that you guys have assembled, both in terms of everyone on the staff, but then also the people in the Discord who are really knowledgeable, super friendly. I think it is just a fantastic thing that you guys have going on at Unabated.
Full disclosure here, Matt was paid for that promotion. He is receiving meals from my mom all week next week post Super Bowl.
That's true. Yeah, that's accurate.
All right. Well, we are going to be right back with John Murray here, so don't go anywhere. But once again, Matt F. the Oracle on Twitter, Matt Freedman, thank you so much for joining us. Best of luck next week. Let's cash some tickets on this game. We'll see you guys in just a second as we bring on John. And now, ladies and gentlemen, switching to the other side of the counter, welcome on into the show, Superbook's own John Murray. John, thank you so much for joining us here. I know that this week has to be just a tiny bit busy for you guys.
It's a little bit busy. There's a lot going on, but it's a good thing. It makes the days go by fast. It's just one meeting after another. It's everything I dreamed of, Tom. Everything I dreamed of growing up.
You knew when you first took that first ticket writing job that
Yes,
this was the goal, to get into as
of
many
course.
meetings as possible.
How many meetings and walkthroughs can I go to today? That was the ultimate objective, Tom. You know that.
Well, we'll try and make this brief so that you can get back to that riveting and exciting part of the job here. But to start us off, the first question, we just got done asking Matt Freedman the same thing. So for
Mhm.
you, I'm going to open it up. The best part of betting the Super Bowl is blank. Finish that sentence.
Yeah, I don't know about betting the Super Bowl, but I love Super Bowl Sunday. Super Bowl Sunday is my favorite day of the year at work. And I know everybody thinks it's because it means football season's over, which of course that's part of it. But also the day goes by really fast. Get to see a lot of people that we haven't seen all year. There's a lot of people that come in here to bet the props, VIPs that come in to watch the game. Very important people from corporate will be on property. I mean, the day just goes by so fast. I get to see so many people, and there's so much to root for, guys. You know, there's so many decisions to root for throughout the day. There's lots of volume. There's an opportunity to make hay, to make a lot of money. It's my favorite day of the year at work. It really is. I think, March Madness is a little bit too crazy. It never really settles. Super Bowl, when the game starts, I can come into my office and I can watch the money, and pretty much every play, it's like, oh, awesome, or oh, shit. And it's just like that for about 3.5 hours, and then we tally it up at the end of the game. And I think it's a lot of fun. And then, yes, Jack, I know, thought I was going to say I'm just happy football season's over. Jack is right, because when I wake up on Monday, February 10th, it's the off season.
That is the best part. And then you get to sit around in the middle of July when the hours just drag on forever and there's nothing to do.
Hey, there's a lot to do, man. There's baseball to watch. Come on. I don't know about that. Nothing. There's always something to do. Usually putting my feet on my desk, watching baseball.
It's a good way to spend your summer. But as far as the Super Bowl goes, and as far as the things that you've got going on, especially around the office here, I'm excited to get a little bit of a peek behind the curtain. But how is your day-to-day with the Super Bowl different this year than in years past? Because for the first time, no Jay Cornegay there with you.
Yeah, Jake Cornegay is semi-retired. He's still doing a lot of media stuff for the Westgate for Superbook, but he's not in the office on a day-to-day basis. So for me, day-to-day, I'd say this weekend will probably be about the same. I'll probably be doing the same things, but we're talking on Tuesday? We're talking on a Tuesday. During the week, mostly in a lot of meetings, and then covering even more media stuff than I would normally do, and having to meet and greet even more people than I normally would. But, I think I excel at all that stuff, Tom. I think I excel at going out and, what do they say, kissing babies, and, well, there's no babies, it's a casino, but just meeting people, saying hello. It's no problem. A lot of meetings, guys, and a lot of questions about the action on the game. Who are we going to need on the game? And people asking about seating, things like that. There's a lot of moving parts going into this Sunday.
Now, tell me, when it comes to your sweat on the game, does it change it because you're dealing with a whole lot of money, but it's not directly coming out of your pocket? Or are you sitting here saying, if we have a terrible Super Bowl, it's my job here and I've got a whole lot bigger sweat to go with?
Well, it's a good question. So I hate so they make us do budget numbers for every month, and it's always a moving target, but February is the hardest one. Because if we do well on Sunday, we're going to soar over our budget. And if the Super Bowl doesn't go our way, we're not even going to come close to our budget. And it's all because of one game. And it could go a long way to dictating your whole budget for Q1 in a lot of ways. It's a lot of pressure on one game. So, yes, of course, it'll make my job a lot easier if we do well on the game. But no, I don't have any control over how eventful or uneventful the game is. And that's really what determines how we do on this game, guys. The props are 65, 70% of our business. If there's way too much scoring and touchdowns and yardage, we're not going to do that well no matter who wins. So, of course, it's stressful. It's something you just can't really control.
So walk us through. Look, the Superbook is legendary when it comes to props. The prop reveal night has always been a landmark date in the calendar. We had Rufus on last week, and Rufus said he still does props because it's like Christmas every year. Like, how do you not celebrate Christmas? How do you not celebrate Super Bowl props? Walk us through, John, what the process is for putting together that packet, which this year, 50 pages of props the Superbook put out. How does that packet begin, and how do you get it out in just a matter of a couple days?
So I've seen Rufus's prop results over the years. I think he does the props for reasons other than just tradition, and other than just because it's Christmas. I don't believe him totally on that. But the guys. So most of the credit should go to Ed Salmons, Jeff Sherman, and our risk team. Casey Degnon, Andrew Babakides, Randy Blum. They work on this for weeks. Joe Totka. They're getting the packet together for weeks before the game, and then you can go in and put the teams in. It's easier now because you can just put Kansas City in every year. You just have to wait for the NFC Championship game to end. You got to plug in the other teams, but they're setting this up in the days before the conference championship games. Then they're meeting on Tuesday and Wednesday. We take one of the ballrooms here on property at the Westgate, set them up in there, and they're just in there all day with their computers, going through all their numbers, arguing about them. I think sometimes they argue too much, to be honest with you. Sometimes when I'm over there, I'm like, can you guys just pick a number and just turn the betting on already? But there's a team of people going through them all for a good 2 days. And then they turn them on, like you mentioned, on Thursday night. We turn them on for betting. So it's a process that takes days and days and days. And even when we do that prop reveal that you're talking about on Thursday night, it's not over because they're adding more props to the menu as we get closer to the game. In some cases, changing the limits. And then, of course, booking the props as the sharp bettors start making their wagers. So it's a huge undertaking.
You know, one thing that's interesting about Vegas casinos, and I don't think this gets talked about a lot, is there is some geographical bias to the clientele. For instance, the Mirage was always an East Coast casino. In other words, the clientele was often from the East Coast, whereas maybe MGM Grand is more of a West Coast California crowd that comes through there. Obviously, we know about like the Hawaiians go to the California downtown. So one thing I've never asked you or I've never heard talked about is Westgate. What is the geographic kind of bias from that gets the crowd that gets drawn into the Westgate?
Well, I would say here, the sports book, you're probably looking at about 80 to 85% of the business is locals. So a lot of locals, they know about the Superbook. We've got very accessible parking here at the Superbook, and I'd say that is the majority of our business. Outside of that, California, a lot of our big non-Nevada resident customers, big whales, are from California, drive in, fly in for the weekend. East Coasters, I mean, honestly, we used to have some really big accounts from New Jersey, and we lost them after the passport repeal. I guess I assume they decided they didn't need to come out here anymore. So I don't know that we have as much of that clientele as I would like. I think it's more locals driven and then people from California.
I think it definitely makes a lot of sense, at least speaking as a fellow local who frequents your fine establishment. You don't have to go down to the strip. You're bypassing all that traffic. Like you said, parking is easy and you're right there. And I mean, I can count on a woodshop teacher's hand the amount of places that are a better place to watch a game than that sports book.
Yeah, we still have, I still would always maintain we have the best venue in the city, but I have to give a lot of credit to a number of other casinos the last 5-6 years. The city has upped its game. And there are some great venues around town now to watch sports, but I still would always go Superbook number one, just in terms of easy access to get in here, the screens, the seating. I think we got the best game in town.
I would have to agree with that take, my friend. Now, when it comes to one of the things that you guys do so well in your prop sheet is the cross sport props. I always love those. I had a great one a couple years ago where it was like field goals versus a Golden Knights game total, and the game was beforehand, and it was like a 9-goal game. Easiest non-sweat bet of my life. But what goes into the cross sport props? How much do you enjoy booking those? And is that something that you'd ever expand to other markets?
So I don't like the cross sports props. Everybody knows that. Everybody at the team here, they know that I don't like it because I think it takes up a lot of time. And I particularly don't like the NBA ones because we argue about them for 5 minutes. That's a long time. There's a lot of stuff to do. You argue about a prop for 5 minutes and then, oh, hey guys, Joel Embiid's not playing tonight. He doesn't care. He's just not going to show up for the game. So we have to refund all the bets. I hate refunding bets. So I don't love those, but I know they do get a lot of attention. The media likes them. I like the Golden Knights ones, like you mentioned, Tom, because I know the Golden Knights are going to play.
Yep.
And we got a prop this year: Knights and Bruins total goals versus first quarter points in the Super Bowl. I do like stuff like that. They're fun and they're simple. And I'd say that the way they're created for the most part is everybody on the team has a sport they specialize in, like Jeff Sherman with golf. And Jeff would do the golf ones, and other people would do the NBA ones and the NHL ones. It looks like they dropped all the soccer ones. I think because I love soccer, I love Premier League soccer. I think they did that as a middle finger to me because I was complaining about them, and I can live with that. I'm not going to take it personally, but no, I like the cross-sport ones. They get a lot. I like them in the sense that they get a lot of media coverage, but I do think they take up a lot of time, and I hate the NBA ones. So there you go. There's an answer.
How much time are you dedicated? Like when you guys are in the room meeting to draw up these numbers and arrive on something to put out as the opener, how much time are you dedicating per prop? You said 5 minutes is a long time. What's that like?
In some cases too much, in some cases, to me, I always think the best thing to do is get them up, let the sharp guys guide you to the right number. You can always move it to where you need to go and get money however you want to. So I think most of them are done very quickly, to answer your question, a matter of a minute or two. Sometimes there's more debate, but I guess I'm not very patient. I just want to get the numbers up. So sometimes maybe I should be a little bit more tactful.
Get the numbers up and let the sharps guide the process.
Yeah.
What a novel approach to bookmaking. It's amazing no one's thought of that.
I remember when Ohio State beat Texas, which was the second semifinal game, I think that was the Cotton Bowl, and we were going back and forth between 8.5 for Ohio State Notre Dame. And I think I finally messaged the group like, Jesus Christ, man, just pick a number and turn it on already. All right. They're going to bet you, and they're going to take you where you need to go.
Yeah.
Let's get this show on the road. And I do feel like that sometimes about the props, although it is important.
Mm-hmm.
This represents so much of our handle on this game.
So let's talk a little bit about the game. I'm going to ask you the obligatory question.
Mm-hmm.
Now the line has been a little bit moving this afternoon. We're down to KC -1 with a lot of the sharper books out there. How's the action been so far for the Superbook?
Well, it's a good question. It's the obvious question, but it's still one I know it's what everybody wants to hear, right? So the public is on Kansas City. The majority of the tickets and the money are on Kansas City. Now there is sharp money in the market on Philadelphia. And you can see that in the way the market's moving. I did a show yesterday where I said, I think Philadelphia will be favored when this game starts on Sunday. And I wasn't just doing that to grab headlines and do big numbers on TikTok, guys. I really think that the Eagles are going to be favored when this game kicks. They were favored 2 years ago in this game. And I think that they're better than Kansas City is. And I know of a lot of sharp groups that are backing Philadelphia. So right now, the public is all over Kansas City. The wise guys are on the Eagles. I do think the market's going to move that way. I really do.
Do you get the majority of your handle in the last 48 hours before the game?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, we'll start seeing the public arrive probably Thursday night, Friday morning, Friday afternoon. And then we're going to go to -105 both ways on this game starting on Friday morning. And we're going to increase our limits on props on Sunday morning. So we know that we'll see really the majority of our handle coming in late Saturday, early Sunday. We've only wrote a fraction of what we're going to write on this game right now.
Yeah, that's an interesting point you brought up about the reduced juice. I'll put this out there because a lot of people might not be aware. You've been dealing -108 all year long. How has that been working? Is that successful for you to go reduce margin?
No, I was really proud. I'm really happy with the team, I should say, because we actually increased our hold percentage on NFL full game straight bets year over year, despite going from -110 to -108. Obviously, it increased our handle, which is great. We actually increased our hold percentage, which surprised me. Now, we didn't do well on moneyline parlays this year in the NFL. And I'm sure you guys have heard all the bookmakers crying about that. But the reduced juice very much worked in both college and pro football for us. It's something we're doing in the NBA. It's something we're going to do in college basketball once we get through the Super Bowl. So it's just a good way to be a differentiator in the market. You're competing with these companies. They spend so much money on customer acquisition, especially outside of the state of Nevada. How do you separate yourself from the pack? We thought this was a way we could put it in the hands of our bookmaking team to generate more handle without giving away money. Trust our bookmakers to do a good job. And I think so far they have.
Would you say that it's been a lot more casual money coming in, or is it that sharps are looking to bet with you guys more? How would you say that breakdown has been? Because it would be quite nice if the public would start being more price conscious.
Well, I think that's a good question, because even a customer, just because a guy understands that he's better off betting minus 108 than minus 110 doesn't necessarily make him a sharp.
Yeah.
Right? It means he has a pulse. I mean, he has some concept of what he's doing. That doesn't make him a sharp player. That doesn't make him a winning bettor. But I don't understand how anybody in the state of Nevada, if they're betting on the NFL, if they're betting on college football, why would you want to lay minus 110 when you can lay 08 or 09 on every single straight bet you make? I think it definitely increased sharp handle, but it also increased the kind of handle that we're looking for, because I think a lot of more just normal players, not just total recreational punters, as they call them across the way, right? These are just normal people that you're probably going to end up beating in the long run, but they signed up for an account because they can save that penny or two on every bet. And you should do that, right? I mean, you really are, you're doing yourself a disservice if you don't.
And another quick thing about that, another thing that you guys do that does save you a few bucks. I was loading up my account the other night to hit some props for the game, and wouldn't you know it, there's no surcharge from Play Plus to put money in my account.
Yeah, we cover the deposit fees. I mean, you've got to figure out where you're going to spend your money in this race. And a lot of books just give you money to bet with. That's difficult. I think that's a little bit more expensive. We're trying to make it a little bit easier for the customer, covering their deposit fees, saving them a few pennies. And it's not on first half college basketball totals. I mean, you guys obviously understand how sharp the NFL side market is, the college football side market is relative to other markets. And we feel like we can get away with being a little more fair.
So coming back to the game a little bit here, are there any props that you typically see a lot of balanced two-way action on? What does the prop market end up shaping like for you?
Balanced two-way action. Can I say the coin toss? Are you guys getting mad at me, or is that is the answer? That there's so much money on heads and tails. I think it's our most. I believe it usually leads us in terms of take account, in terms of the two-way props. The most bet props are MVP and first player to score a touchdown. Mm-hmm. But if you want to talk about a two-way prop, I would say that's one. I would say the jersey number over under gets a jersey number of the first player to score a touchdown. I should clarify that.
Oh,
that one, I don't think anybody knows what to do with that bet. So they like it. And then here's one this year. I noticed this when I looked this up this morning. Rushing attempts by Mahomes is getting an awful lot of money on both sides of it. I thought that was interesting. So I guess it's like the props that maybe aren't as sexy, like over passing yards Mahomes, over rushing yards Barkley. Those are going to be predominantly overs, right? Mm-hmm. Those are ones that right now at least have been very balanced. Heads and tails. I mean, it's unbelievable how many tickets we write on that. And we do book that at minus 101 both ways. I mean, you are betting on a literal coin flip, guys. We don't need to take minus 110 from you. The books that take minus 110 from you on that should be ashamed of themselves.
Now, I would argue that the wisdom is public goes tails, sharps go heads, because public says tails never fails, right?
Is that all I know is it's like a big roar this will be like maybe my 17th or 18th Super Bowl working in this behind the counter. And it's usually one of the biggest roars we get all day. And it's also, obviously it's before the game's kicked off. So we're still kind of scrambling to get everything taken care of. It's always a very, very popular prop, and it's usually very good two-way.
It's also very good that you're not allowed to book the length of the national anthem here, because that was a controversial prop last year.
No, I don't want to do that one. They always ask me about that. The length of the national anthem, the first song of the halftime show. Somebody knows. Somebody has been at rehearsal and they know what's going to happen, and that leaks. And I don't know why they tell other people. Like, if you have that information, you should probably just go and bet it. But these people are always weirdos, and they put it online somewhere, and then all of a sudden everyone's betting it. And no, I don't want to bet something where people know the outcome. I mean, I don't want to book something, I should say, where people know the outcome. How does that work out well for me?
Yeah.
That doesn't.
Yeah.
I mean,
that's no good. No good.
I'll tell you firsthand, because last year I was there setting up for the game, and when Reba came out and they were doing that national anthem rehearsal, there wasn't a single person in the press box that wasn't on their phone with their stopwatch app out.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about, dude. Why would a sports book want to book something where people know the outcome? I mean, we're the ones that'll get hit on something like that, you know? So that, no good, man. As far as I'm concerned, Nevada Gaming, keep not allowing that prop. I don't want it.
So what are some of the props that you've had to move the line on so far this year, whether because Rufus came trotting through or because of public money?
Well, the one surprised me a little bit on opening night was Saquon Barkley under his longest rush. So that one got bet multiple times, got knocked down a few yards. It's since come back up, but I thought that was a little surprising because I think he ripped like a 60-yard touchdown on the first play of the game in the NFC Championship game. But I get it. You know, Kansas City's so much better defensively than Washington is. I guess they're thinking they'll be able to bottle him up. And then another one that's moved a lot, that's traditionally a very sharp prop, and I guess it is again this year, is will either team score 3 straight times? The sharp guys love this one. The public loves the no. They see that plus on the no, and they can't bet it fast enough. But I can tell you guys this year for sure, that one's been moving up. It's moved up, I think, about 25 or 30 cents. So one team to score 3 times in a row. From my vantage point, I hope that team is Philadelphia, but I can say for sure that's a pretty sharp prop.
I feel like we talk about that one every year.
It always moves. It always moves. Yeah.
And I don't want to say always because then people will get upset with me. I try not to be too definitive. It always wins too. It's somebody I know people get upset, blah blah blah, but it does. It's usually a good bet. It's like betting under 1.5 shortest touchdown. Usually wins.
Yeah.
I feel like that one, especially in this game.
Yeah, you would think, right? I mean, you got to think Philadelphia with their exciting tush-push play, they would be very likely to get that.
I think, is anyone putting up a prop? Will there be a fake tush-push? Because I feel like this is the time to pull it out.
The fake tush-push. They should do that, but I guess, like, if I was the Eagles, my counter-argument would be like, why should we fake it when we can just do it and just score?
Yeah.
You know, it's not like, one thing I do see with all these teams is they outthink themselves. And that's why the Patriots were so successful, man. They'd be 4th and 1. They'd run up to the line of scrimmage. Brady would snap it before the other team was set. First down every time. You know, if you got something like that works, just do it.
It always amazed me is in a copycat league like this that nobody ever copied that one, because the tush push, there's some level of, you need the guys that they have to some extent, but anybody could have done the Brady sneak.
You know, we were talking about this on 2 Sundays ago during the conference championship games. Who do you guys think, what quarterback in recent NFL history would be the best at the tush push, the quarterback sneak play? I said my answer was Andrew Luck. I just think because of his size and athleticism, I don't see how he could have ever been stopped on that play, but there was a lot of conversation about it.
I mean, I feel like the obvious answer is Cam Newton.
Cam Newton's a good one.
Yeah, Cam Newton really would be. Yeah.
That's a good one.
Ben Roethlisberger.
Yeah, but does he have the athleticism of those guys? I mean, he's huge, but no, I like Cam Newton. I think that's a good one. Nobody even mentioned that one.
I'm amazed that's not the first name that came up.
No. Well, maybe our team might not be as bright, man, Tom. You know, we're sitting back there watching football all day, you know.
All right. So you mentioned before this was your 17th year of the Super Bowl.
17th-ish. I don't want to date myself too much, Jack. 17th-ish.
how has this evolved over the last 17 years? Just free form question. Think of the ways that this is different than it was 17 years ago.
Well, it's more than ever. Our how we do on Sunday will be determined by the props, and that increases every year. And I always get the question from my bosses, who are we rooting for? The short answer, probably Philadelphia, but the bigger answer is a relatively uneventful game because we're adding to our prop menu every year. I think we've got like 600 some props. So even though my first Super Bowl behind the counter was the first New England New York Giants Super Bowl, the David Tyree helmet catch game, and props were a big part of it back then, but not to the extent that they are now. That's getting more and more popular every year. And then just the challenge of booking in general has become harder, not just on Super Bowl, but on everything. There's such a race now for customer acquisition in sports betting, and there's so much money being spent to acquire those recreational customers, and you're battling more and more sharp guys every year, and it's just more challenging than it's ever been. It's not the easiest, but luckily we have a great team, and they're doing a great job.
I'm curious on that same end. Have you been seeing more? How is the recreational action so far up to this point been? I know that everybody's going to be rolling into town this weekend, but is it less, more, about the same as years past so far?
I'd say it's close to the same. A lot of people coming in and just saying, "Oh, give me $3,000 on the Chiefs or $3,000 on the over," and that's exactly the kind of bet that pays the bills for sports books. I mean, I know the huge number bets get all the headlines, but just the recreational guy coming in and just saying, "Give me 1,000 here, 2,000 there," and that's the guy that pays the bills for you. And I think we've had a relatively normal amount of tickets so far on the game, and more tickets on the props, just because we're doing more props. So I think the team deserves a lot of credit for that. They've done a great job.
And when it comes to those props and the wider menu,
Mhm.
the market, obviously, every year we get more efficient. Do you think that that's really offset by the fact that you're also saying, well, we've got all of these new markets, we've got all of these new things that open up? Do you think it kind of maintains a bit of an equilibrium there?
It does, but what you've got to be able to do, and we've got some software limitations that we're working on, but what you've got to be able to do is allow your customers to do more parlays of these props, setting up more parlayable options. Because I definitely think that the bettors are getting sharper and sharper. They're watching shows. That there's more people out there that know the edges here and there. So the way to offset that is by getting more people to parlay stuff together, because that's hard. And every time you add a leg to your parlay, my edge against you increases. So I want you to do more and more of those. And if you happen to hit one, good for you.
I mean, that's no bookmaker is going to give it to you more straight than that when it comes to what it's going to take to make a good sports better out of you right there.
You got to give the people the truth. They're going to figure it out anyway, Tom. I mean,
Exactly.
you're totally doing yourself a disservice if you're only playing at one book. I don't care where you live. You got to have a few different accounts. You got to shop for the best price. And if you're with us, minus 108 all season long, we're going to be the best price a lot of the time. So I think you got to make sure you've got an account here. And there's a number of other very good options in Las Vegas as well.
I'll tell you, I definitely agree with that, and I found most of my sides and totals action was definitely coming to you guys this season, and I look forward to doing the same thing again next year. John, thank you so much for being with us. I know that it is the busiest week for you. I really appreciate you taking the time. Of course, if people want to find you and the fantastic work that you are tweeting, they can head to @VegasMurray on Twitter. Also, check you out. You guys do some great content over there. Of course, you've got the show that you do with Kelly in Vegas as well, which is absolutely always a fun time. I love tuning in with you guys. Are you and Jay still doing the Superbook pod as well right now?
Not at the moment. Not at the moment. I mean, Jay is still involved. He's doing a lot of interviews, a lot of local stations. But right now, the only podcast I have is the aforementioned one with Kelly. And what a true labor of love that is with her. Kelly's great, man. She's a lot of fun. She does a great job.
Yeah, she is definitely one of my favorite people when she comes to town too. She's such a great time. And hey, Thank you so much for being on again with us, John. If people want to come by and make a bet, they've still got plenty of time to do so on the Super Bowl. Head on down to the Superbook at the Westgate here in Las Vegas, especially if you're rolling into town for the game. Um, no greater spot to go. And John, again, thank you so much. We really appreciate the time. I don't really want to wish you best of luck on the Super Bowl, but
No, no, yes, you do. Yes, you do. You're going to be, you
that's a good
guys will
point.
both, you guys deep down, if you hear that we Nevada did very well, you'll be so happy for me. You'll be able to sleep better that night. And hey, we're probably on a lot of the same sides when it comes to props.
Exactly.
Yeah, I just
And
thought the same exact thing
and
there.
I gotta say, Unabated, I can't even tell you how much my risk guys love the product. And I'm being serious. And they're looking at it for the player props and helping book the props, see what everybody else has on props. It's an awesome tool. And our guys are they're using it right now back there. So I think I can tell you guys, we'll probably be rooting for the same thing on Sunday. I think you'll be very happy for me if you see me out there doing all these victory lap interviews next week. I think you guys will be in good spirits too.
I think that is a very great point. Again, John Murray, thank you so much. I'll hopefully be checking in on you real soon after the game. We'll see you then.
Thanks, guys.
All right. Well, wow. Our first doubleheader episode here. And Jack, I got to pat us on the back. I think that was a good one. I swear, John and Matt, two of my favorite people in this industry. It was great to get them both on for the show. And hey, it was great to get both perspectives from both sides of the counter, especially I loved how John was talking about stuff that wasn't just bookmaking. It wasn't just about the action that you're getting on the game. It was the things that they have to think about acquiring new customers, about bringing in that casual money, stuff like that. That's not what we think of from our perspective.
Yeah, and Matt gave us a lot of great little nuggets of some plays that he's looking into. That was probably one of the more actionable interviews that we've done in the past few weeks, so that was great as well. But speaking of actionable content, coming up this Saturday, for those of you who are listening just as this drops, and if it's a Super Bowl episode, why would you put this off for next week? I am doing Superstream 59. Well, we're both doing it. Tom's going to be there as well, kind of working behind the scenes as the producer. He'll be on screen for the start of it as well. And I'm going to have, as I always do, 40 plus guests all come through. Legendary people from the industry, as well as up-and-coming bettors, as well as bookmakers, as well as writers and pundits for the industry. I got a wide range of people I tap on the shoulder every year, and they all seem to say yes, surprisingly. So I'm going to be starting that 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific on Saturday, February 8th, and we'll go until I run out of guests. And I'm guessing that's going to be about 4 hours.
Yeah.
And you can tune in on Twitter on the Unabated Sports account, or you can tune on YouTube. We'll have the link up on our Twitter probably, as well as in our Discord for people to tune in on YouTube. You can interact with the broadcast in the YouTube chat window there. It's going to be a great time. I hope everyone comes out for Superstream 59.
And we'll put that link in the description of this video as well. So feel free to click it, bookmark it, set your notifications. And while you're at it, maybe check out the Super Bowl prop screen. If you haven't yet, we just launched it yesterday, and it's wow, Jack. We've got pretty much every market you can imagine. If you need to price shop pretty much any Super Bowl prop, not just the main stuff, not just the main props. We've got all the exotics, all of the stuff that's coming out from the books. We've got it in there. It's an amazing tool to help you make sure that you're getting the best price when you're trying to make your Super Bowl bets this week.
Absolutely. It's even better than I expected it to be honest with you. So it should be a must-see for everyone.
Absolutely. All right. That is going to do it for us on this very supersized episode of the Unabated podcast. Thank you all so much for listening. Of course, be sure to share it with your friends. You know the whole drill. And we'll see you hopefully right back here for Superstream 59. Best of luck on the Super Bowl, and let's cash some tickets. We'll see you next time.